Okay, we've got Avi Bhagtani. Avi, we're going to be talking about democratizing intelligent capture, which sounds fascinating. Tell us what we're talking about.
Yeah, so thank you, Seth. First, thanks for this opportunity. My name is Avi Bhagtani. I run product marketing strategy for one of our fastest growing product lines inside of Automation Anywhere called IQBot. Automation Anywhere, as many of you might know, is a developer of robotic process automation software, right? And our products cater to many of the world's leading enterprises that look to deploy a digital workforce that can have software bots to complete their business process end to end. And this is one of the things that we are going to talk about a lot in our conversation is this whole transformation about end-to-end process automation and the impact of intelligent document processing as part of the end-to-end process automation, especially around the democratization of capture, the transition of the capture industry, where we are, where we were as an industry about 30 years ago when we had Capture 1.0, and then, coming to more recently, the advent of RPA along with OCR technologies, followed by RPA with more cutting edge technologies that include AI, more focused on the business users and making it easier for folks to deploy document capture as part of their end-to-end process automation.
You mentioned we've been talking about this for decades. And as we, podcast land knows no time, but we're at least in the middle of 2019. That's safe to say. How do you see the market as it is right now and where it's going?
Yeah, so that's a very good segue into sort of getting into what the transformation is, right? But before we do that, I think it'll be important to understand where we were as an industry, right? I mean, this has been in, capture obviously it's been 20, 30 years ago, when the first capture technologies came out. They were very siloed and very focused into solving a single problem. Their job was to extract some information from certain elements, and some did it better than the others. But the challenge always has been that the capture industry's progress and the adoption of the overall capture market has been slow. And let's try to understand why, right? If you look at the advent of OCR, followed by some intelligent OCR-like solutions, and what these solutions struggled with, where they were very legacy systems. These legacy systems, they were closed systems. They were very hard to use, deploy, set up, and train, right? And especially because if you had to become an expert, these were technically very challenging. You had to be an expert in using these solutions, deploying these solutions. The setup times were very high, that inadvertently made the cost of deployment and the overall TCO very high. Right, and it was left to IT and other engines inside of an organization to figure this out. Fast forward to where we are today. The point where we are today is that now, with the advent of technologies like IQBot, whose focus is to democratize intelligent document processing, what has happened is we're making this technology now available to the business users. A majority of our clients that we have in the market today that are using IQBot are users or basically the owners of the business process in that organization. So what happens is when you go to them, they're the decision makers, and say, look, we have a product that is easy to use, easy to set up, right, and easy to deploy. It takes away the overhead of that initial hesitation and making the ROI more acceptable when these business users or these owners of their business processes go to their executive teams and are trying to make a pitch that, look, we need to do X, Y, Z in our business transformation, and here's the product that can do it at a reasonable cost, at a reasonable time. And that's what we pride ourselves on. We have customer case studies that we have published. I can actually tell you how, when we compare to some of the legacy solutions, we've had as much as 5 times to 10 times faster setup costs and twice the productivity in terms of processing right off the gate of a legacy solution, right? And then, we'll get into why and the role of AI and all that stuff in a bit. But that's where I want to set the stage to tell you what's the difference and where we are as an industry, right? And then maybe we get into understanding what's sort of coming next, and if you want to dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've done a good job there of, explaining the past and, just how clunky and slow it was based on where we were with not only infrastructure, but also compute power, where we are today with the kind of ability of ownership within business to really make change. So that brings us to tomorrow, which starts today, of course, right? Well, what should we be expecting here?
So what you will expect is where we are today is you will see that a lot of you're starting to see the advent of artificial intelligence and AI-like technologies in business process transformation. They have been much slower to adopt, again, because the same challenges that some of the legacy document capture industry has. AI is complex. It's not easy to use. This is why what we want to do is we want to create products in the future that has the ability for you to use artificial intelligence technologies like AI as part of your business transformation as seamlessly as possible, right? So what if you can take it in an example of a use case, right? Let's play with the use case to see sort of where we are today. Let's take insurance, for example, right? A claims process. So basically what happens is an individual or a person gets into an accident. There's a claim that needs to be filed for an automobile accident. Just take an example, very simplistic example, but let's follow the process. A claim is submitted via some kind of a channel. It could be an email, it could be a chat bot, it could be some IVR technology that someone calls in or does something. And then what RPA can do is actually take that information, from an email, apply the right technologies. You could apply NLP if that information is coming from a chatbot. You could download a form, which could basically be a claims form that someone has submitted, and take that information and give it to or send it for processing to an IQ bot, for example. What IQ bot can do is actually intelligently extract that information, right, and makes it very easy for a business user to basically say, okay, if I can extract this information, here's the output of my extracted information, and here's basically a split screen, for example, and says, okay, can I validate this information? Once that information is validated, and you can send those sort of bot for production. Now, for example, as part of their claims process, not very typical, but maybe there is handwriting. Now, if there is handwriting in there, and if there's something like a product like IQBot cannot solve today, we could basically take that portion and send it to a third-party solution. We could send it to a Microsoft OCR. We could send it to Google, somewhere in the cloud or on-prem. Does not matter. And what happens is now what you have is an extracted information of the claims form. This is the age of a person. This is the type of accident. This is what happens. What could also happen is, as part of this business process, you could get pictures. You could get an image, right? Now what you can do is you can use technologies like computer vision, right? Like AI, computer vision technologies, and compare the damage, compare the information that came in a claims form, right? And actually come up with a very reasonable estimate of the damages. What you could also do is you could take this information and pass it on to like a fraud bot, right? That is sitting in the cloud. And the fraud bot can tell you with some level of accuracy or with some kind of a prediction score, hey, does this look like a fraudulent claim to you? And if yes, send it for more reviews. If no, you can see the estimate, the claim doesn't look fraudulent, let's process it. So what we have done is, this is where we are getting into the ability for making this kind of technology accessible to people who didn't have this accessible to them in the past. And these are business users, these are transformational leaders that are basically need to have this thing in their back pocket to create that kind of story that they can present to their executives.
It also seems to me that you're shining a spotlight onto specific dark data, only the dark data that we actually need, and then kind of guiding that spotlight to another part of the organization, to another part of the process, so that they can, that part of the enterprise can use that dark data, which is now structured.
Perfect. So that's a perfect example, and you hit it right on top. Because here's the thing: I think we believe that if we claim the mandate that we can solve, look, 80% of the data out there is unstructured. 20% sits in structured forms, easily automatable and so on. But 80% of the data that sits out there is unstructured. It's going to be very hard for us to sit here and make a claim that a product working in silo can solve that problem. Some can do it better than the others. Some can do it not as well as the others. But the idea here is that if we as an industry want to transition, want to be able to convert this dark data into structured format so bots can process it, we need an ecosystem. We need solutions, but an ecosystem with a very clear focus that this ecosystem is only going to be successful if all the elements of the ecosystem are focused on the pure democratization of this process, right? And this is exactly why when we partner, we want to make sure that we're, just like IQBot creates that simplicity for a business user, has the ability to deploy quickly. We want to bring in those kind of elements into our product line, into our platform that can solve those with the same kind of caveats. It has to be easy to deploy. It has to be easy to set up. Otherwise, you can spend a lot of time not getting the kind of ROIs you expect, and it frustrates a lot of the folks in executives, right? You end up biting more than you can chew, and we do not want to be in that situation. We want to make it simpler, easier for businesses to start their journey and be successful in the journey of transformation.
There we go. Democratize intelligent capture, shine a spotlight onto the dark data that you need to be structured, structure that, and carry on. Yeah. Avi, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to catching up with you again whenever we can.
Yes, it's always a pleasure, and we always thank you and your team for the opportunity.